order. Tuesday, October 22nd, regular board meeting. Please join me in a pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just one procedural item here. We mentioned it last meeting before we adjourned, but right after our last meeting, the board did meet in executive session to discuss personnel matters. Item 2.03, approval to adopt tonight's agenda. Motion and second, please. Motion by Mrs. Gauss, second by Dr. Diller. Questions, amendments, revisions to tonight's agenda?
You're good. Yep, you're good.
Thank you, Mr. Bigger. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so moved. 3.01, recognition of VFW Chambersburg Post 1599.
Unfortunately, Don Hershey can't be here. This is a little delayed recognition, but they're very busy, I guess, doing bingo and dinner across the street. We begged him to run over real quick, and we'll do it any time in the meeting, but he's too busy. We do want to thank them for their beginning of the year lunch for us and the donations to the school district for just supporting us. We had a certificate of appreciation, and we'll be certainly give it to him. We're still going to try to get him here one of these days, but he said Tuesday's a bad day for him, so. But thanks to the VFW and Don for all their service for opening day lunch and the amount of food and people that came over and helped us out. So just thanks to them.
Good day in the kitchen. Okay, 3.02, superintendent's report.
I have a few items. I'm going to steal Tammy's thunder a little bit. She sent the email to me, and I'll speak for her. We did receive the PA Department of Community Economic Development grant to pay for Fayetteville and Scotland roofs. Recently, I do want to thank the legislators for their support. We received about $790,000 to replace those roofs, which is wonderful. FYI, Career Tech received $1.5 million, which does help us as well because we share those costs. So, you know, that's a nice $2.3 million state grants for our schools here that'll really help us out. So I do want to thank everybody for their time in writing them, but also receiving the grants and everybody who supported getting them to Franklin County. Second item, the public forum last night at Fayetteville. There was about 65 people there, 5 board members. The recording from that public forum will go out tomorrow. The next one is November 11th at Cams North at 7 p.m. And the Q&A from both forums is on our website. It's at the end of the presentation. There's pushing 100 questions with answers. Some are repetitive, but please feel free to go into the Q&A if you have questions about the future of where we're headed. I do appreciate everyone attending last night. It was well attended. Good questions. It was an hour and a half of Q&A and presentations. So I think the word's getting out. The questions are getting a little bit more narrowed. And I think we're making some progress overall with the community. We certainly want more to attend the final meeting. I presented at Grandview this morning for their faculty meeting. And then we presented also today with all the bus contractors in this room today. So we're hitting every audience we can of employees and public throughout the district. So thanks to everybody for coming and asking good questions. The comp plan for the district was approved by the state, as well as our TSI and ATSI plans. I received notification of that today. We did receive 5 requests for proposals for legal services for solicitor. So we're reviewing those. Hopefully we'll have an action item for you in November from those RFPs. And then just a final reminder that there's a special meeting on November 7th at 7 p.m. in here just to talk about the facilities and the financing of such programs we're considering moving forward. That's the only agenda on that night, and there's no voting. It's just discussion and hopefully debate about what we're doing moving forward in the future. That concludes my report.
Chris, do we have a count, or like when the public forums are all done, like a total number of attendees?
Yeah, we had 70 plus at the 76, 65 so far.
Just be curious, once you're done
Yep.
with your last one, how many total attendees we had with all the forums?
I think we're getting some follow-up that people will actually listen to it afterwards, not just live. I think the last one, the radio station did a live stream of it and they posted it. This time we did it. And people asked to live stream it or to at least record it and put it out there. So we'll see how many views we get on top of the attendees.
Yeah.
So, yep, we can do that.
And then the grant, I know at Career Tech, there were 2 different grants. What's the match? Was this the one that had any match with it?
Yeah.
There's a match. 40.
The match was around, for us, was around 250,000. So the project's a little over $1 million for both roofs.
That's like a 25% match. Okay. I know there were 2 different ones at Career Tech.
Yeah, the one was an environmental grant. We didn't apply for that.
So on the Career Tech, I mean, that $1.5 million at Career Tech, that's a $5 million project over there, as Chris said. So that means there's $3.5 million left. But Chambersburg's share is 44%. So 42% of $1.5 million is 600,000, plus or minus. So good news for all of us. But there'll be more information coming to the business office from Career Tech now that I'm sure we'll be moving forward on that. That roof at Career Tech is 60 years old, so.
Plus.
60 plus. It has, it's older than I am, darn it. Okay. Chris mentioned one of my other items I was going to mention, the President's Report, which was the special meeting on November 7th. The heavy lift, that's just part of the heavy lift. It's just going to be presentation all in the building. Again, I want to thank Chris for the forums. It's all leading up to this, and it's been very enjoyable to sit back and watch this unfold in a very methodical way. Open communication and no rush. I think back, I've shared this before, it was a little over a year ago when we were sitting across the road in the library and we were having a discussion about one of our buildings, and we started throwing all kinds of ideas out against the wall. And what came out of that meeting was, well, let's tap the brakes a little bit. Well, we tapped the brakes September of last year or so. And pretty soon we're gonna get ready to get on the throttle and take off from the start-finish line again. The other thing I'd like to mention, it's great when we recognize our community. And I love the newsletter where we're also recognizing our staff. The 45-year employee who we recognized last meeting, and even those well below that. And a shout out to my good friend, Mr. Yost Toast, that he had he had 30 years in. Goodness gracious. But congratulations to everyone for their years of service. With that, we'll go to student government reports. Do we have anyone here from student government? Yep. Come on. I'm so used to you guys sitting in the front.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is my student government report from the Career Magnet School. Next slide, please. So far what we've done in the past month has been the pickleball intramurals, yearbook, Instagram, instant decision day, prom committee, and the PTSA fundraiser. Next slide, please. So this is one of the first intramurals of our school year. We usually do about 5 or 6. So this has been taking place throughout the course of October. Right now we're in the process of doing our semifinals, so everyone's looking forward to doing that. And this usually takes place during our mentor periods, so this doesn't overlap between anyone's classes. Next slide, please. So our CMS yearbook made an Instagram page if anybody wants to follow it. It's in the very, very fine print on the bottom. But yeah, it's out there. They're reposting stuff every once in a while. So if anyone wants to follow, they can go right ahead. Next slide, please. So it's supposed to say instant decision on the top, but that's all right. So we're having Instant Decision Day next week, where several of our colleges around here are gonna have representatives at the Career Magnet School. There's like certain GPA requirements and things as such, but it's pretty self-explanatory. We're gonna have Penn State, SHIP, Wilson, Messiah, and about 3 or 4 other colleges there as well. Next slide, please. So the prom committee had their first meeting last Friday during our CMS Cares. We also had another event to add on there on to CMS Cares. Last Friday, we had a big group of kids make note cards for middle school students. So I'm sure that'll be handed out to the counselors of the middle schools, and the counselors will be handing those note cards out to students that need encouragement or they feel they're not doing good enough in school and things of this such. So next CMS Cares, we're gonna be doing note cards for teachers. So this fundraiser takes place today where proceeds went to our CMS PTSA. Next slide, please. So this is taking place in the next few weeks. We have graduation planning. Next slide, please. And caps and gowns are being ordered. Deadline is in about 2 weeks. So we're trying to do things ahead of time so graduation doesn't catch up to us. So that's the end of my student government report. Thank you.
Thank you. And while the next one's coming up, I apologize, Ms. Harbaugh. Ms. Harbaugh had a prior commitment. She is on remotely with us this evening, not in person. I apologize, Ms. Harbaugh, for not recognizing you sooner.
Hi, I'm from Cassius Student Government. My name is Carly Skoltedi, and I'm our president. Next slide, please. Next slide after that, too. Next slide, please, sorry. So our homecoming just ended, and it was a super successful week. We had our Spirit Week outfits, annual parade and powder puff game, and our variety show, and our football halftime show, and the dance, and everything went super smoothly. Thanks to the donations of the powder puff attendees, the Cassius Student Government raised $1,186 for the Cumberland Valley Breast Cancer Alliance. Next slide, please. This fall, on November 13th, our student government is going to be taking a trip to the PA State Capitol building to receive a tour and meet the Representative Kaufman and observe a session of the PA House of Representatives. Afterwards, we will tour the Army War College Museum in Carlisle. Next slide, please. In the past, Cassius Student Government has donated heavily to help fund Trojans Care. For those of you that are not familiar with Trojans Care, it's a fund where we raise money for students that have gone through catastrophic events and help their families get back on their feet. This year, Student Government is doing the fundraising, and we plan on creating a logo for Trojans Care and selling t-shirts, rally towels, and other merchandise at winter sports events, with all proceeds going to Trojan Care Fund. Thank you.
When will the t-shirts be available?
Currently, Mr. Sherman is working on a logo, so whenever he gets that out, we're hopefully the t-shirts will be made within the month so that we can have them at basketball games, because we're planning on doing a fundraising Friday night
Right.
and selling them to not only the student government but anyone in the Crazies. We're hoping that we can partner up with the Cassius Crazies Instagram or whoever runs it and have a Trojan Care night the same way we had a mini-thon night for football.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you.
Hey, I have a question too. Actually, I had checked this item to maybe pull out of the consent agenda, but I'd like to have your input as well. So I was looking at 703, it's the clubs and the assets. And I was just kind of looking at those things and wondering, for instance, so at CAMS North, there's a student council. That kind of sounds like government. At CAMS South, there's a it's called student government. CMS, it's called the Student School Board. Sounds like government. And at Cassius, there's the student government. So there's kind of a student government in every one of those places, but what bewildered me was how, for instance, at Cassius, they have $32,000 in that student government fund. Cam South, $27,000. Cams North, like 2,000. And CMS 11,000. So I was just wondering, the discrepancy for one has 32,000 and one has like a couple thousand.
Let's ask, well, I mean.
I mean, we could
you-
say
you-
that for 703, but I
I'll just-
thought maybe.
Just
why-
ask Dr. Long maybe to reply to that, if you could, please.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It's different things that the school does. I mean, for like Cassius, they have 2,300 students, so
Yeah,
they're able to sell a
Generate
lot more, do a lot more. And the other schools are just doing what they can do. CMS naturally is a high school, so they're gonna do some other things as well to raise money. And then the middle schools are, you know, they're at a different level, but they still like to do things. Plus, you know, the high schools can drive to things and do things like that, where middle schools have the parents to rely on as well. So.
Thank you. I was curious about that.
Can I just add that I just
Let's
like
get
to-
back on, oh, go ahead.
Can I just make one comment? Thank you for doing the Trojans Cares, because there's a lot of need within the group at the high school, and I think it's great that you're seeing that need and you're helping, because there's so many different places you can go and do fundraising and then donate, and I think it's great that you're donating to the students within. I think that's a wonderful idea, so thank you and your group.
Staying back on script, item 5.01, privilege of the floor. Members of the audience are invited to comment on agenda items. Follow the normal procedure we've been following. Those who've signed in, I'll let them comment first, but even who's mentioned that they'd like to make a comment, even if you didn't mark your name down as wanting to make a comment, we'll let you speak anyway, because that's what we do here. There's one who did sign up, Mrs. Jordan.
Good evening. I trust you read my email from October 13th, and it applies to your old business 601 audio and video. So we had a camera in here. It came down, I assume, because of the renovations. You saw how I went. I went with the cash. If the camera's still around, I have no problem with you putting it back up there. If you have to hire someone, you give that person a job. Or you keep a maintenance man employed here. I have no problem. I don't see anybody else in this room that is going to talk on this topic. And at the last meeting, it was said that, well, I've had people approach me, they wouldn't want to be shown on YouTube. But if those people aren't here tonight, they should be. So there's that, and as of today, there's 121 views. So out of respect for those people, I want you to vote to continue to show yourselves to the world. You're public officials. I look at other board meetings and the faces of those people are online. So I hope to hear tonight you all vote to keep the camera up. The other thing is under the superintendent's report. Someone asked me within the last couple days, how would I present the Ignite Academy? So I thought about it, and it's a wonderful school, so here's how I would promote it. It's a student, it's a teacher, it's a principal, it's a brand new building. And in that, it's excitement. Excitement to learn, because the kids will come to school excited when they walk into a new building. When I saw this done, I was impressed. So I don't care. You heard me last night say, I can afford this, and I'm on a fixed income. And I'll take it down to numbers because I know it's going to be a 20 or 25 year bond. That's not going to kill me here. It's not. So if it's going to be Ignite, I'm all for it. I looked into it. I'm excited about it for the children. And I don't care what color these kids are, whether they're white, black, Hispanic, green, yellow. And that's how I feel about it. So moving forward, we want to be positive about any new school construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stewart. Any other members of the audience like to speak? Mr. Jordan.
I know, I attended the forum last night, and I know you're not supposed to talk to individuals in the meeting, but in the postcard that I got that I was happy to see that reminded me of that, I saw there's a QR code on there, and if I understand that QR code from what the superintendent said last night, if you go on that, that gives you all the information about all the stuff that has been going on. So being an older person who isn't really up on those QR codes and is learning, I found that you can get a lot of good information on that easier than trying to go into the school website to find it. So I was kind of happy to see that, but I didn't realize it when I got the card. So I'm here tonight saying that anybody who's listening to this, if you have that card with the QR code, I think it'll be a lot easier to access all the good information that we're working on. Just easier than going online. So I'm pretty happy to see that on there. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the audience? Any other members of the audience? Okay. Item 6.01, we discussed this last meeting at our committee of the whole. Motion to approve adding video and live streaming board meetings during board member discussion and displaying the agenda on the screen at other times. Motion and second, please.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Gogler, second by Mr. Walker. Questions or discussions? Okay, Mrs. Stauffer, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Diller?
Yes.
Mrs. Gogler?
Yes.
Ms. Gauss?
Yes.
Ms. Harbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Hayda?
Yes.
Mr. McKee?
Yes.
Mr. Norcross?
No.
Mr. Raber?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-1.
Thank you. Seven group the consent agenda items, 7.01 to 7.13. These are new items that were not discussed at the committee of the whole. I guess I'll do the same thing. Start with Chris and your team. If there's any one of those 13 items you would like to make a comment on that you think would be helpful, go ahead, and then if not, I'll ask board members if they have any questions or comments.
We'll go down the lines.
Okay. Any board members have any other questions? Mr. Haydock, you had mentioned about 7.03. Was that answer okay, or do we need to get more information?
I'm perfectly happy with the
Okay.
answer I got on that. Thank you, Mr. Long, Dr. Long. 706, though, I have a comment or
Go ahead.
all right, so that talks about job descriptions for some of the new positions we're looking at. And first comment I have or question is relative to the elementary school counselor. When you read the job description, it talks about, give me a moment here to pull that up. Here we go. – Yeah, very first sentence, summary of the purpose of the job is to support the academic, social, and emotional development of young students. Whether it is in, assumed to be in the other duties, or it's explicitly called out, I would hope that anyone who's in a position like that, or the person who's maybe in charge of all those people, should be on the wellness committee. Because right now, there's a lot of discussions about nutrition and physical activity, but there's still work needs to be done on the emotional part of a student's development. So I think that would be an addition to the wellness committee. That'd be a good idea. That's all I'll say about that. How you do that, I don't know.
Mr. Whitman?
I would say that we do have a head counselor that gets a stipend, Lindsay Leonard at the high school. I can check with her about being on that.
Okay, thank you. That'd be great.
Who's in charge of the wellness committee? Is that Jared Ford?
Yeah,
Okay.
Jared is. And the other comment I have pertains to the intervention specialist. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I know this is a very, very controversial area that we can talk about, but I think it needs to be discussed. I've said it before, I think there needs to be more staff, students, teachers rather, more staff or teachers that look like the students that they're teaching. And I know it gets tricky because you don't want to say, well, we're trying to set quotas and we need to have certain people come here to be teachers because it's a quota. I'm not asking for a quota, but I will ask, isn't it appropriate that, to me, intervention specialists are dealing with people that are having problems in the classroom. I don't know what the description, the characteristics of those kids look like, but I imagine there's probably some kind of common themes about their culture or their economic background or their family life. And it may reveal that it would be nice if those kids could see an intervention specialist that understood their culture, that maybe looked like them, that came from an environment that they're dealing with every day. I think that would be a good idea that would help those problem students develop and have a long-term solution and benefit to school, rather than, okay, we got the kid figured out for one day, let's just, problem's over. No, it's not over. So I'm asking that might be a consideration when you're looking for people to fill those jobs.
So tonight's vote is on job descriptions, is what we're voting on tonight. If the board wants to discuss hiring practices, recruiting methods, sources, resources, we could do that in another session, workshop, committee of the whole. But just for clarity tonight, we're voting on a job description.
Is not an alteration to the description, in fact, part of this discussion?
I'm not sure how we would ever word the appearance of an individual in a job description.
I didn't say appearance, I said.
You said you want them to look like they do.
I said maybe look like that kid, but here's what I said first, before that. Possess the cultural knowledge and experience that these kids live every day. That's what I'm suggesting. They may in fact look like these kids after all. You can kind of draw the correlation there. So all I'm suggesting is maybe it's time to add that into the job description, maybe it's not. I'm throwing it out there.
I would recommend that the board can discuss the hiring processes and procedures and who, what, where, and how in a separate discussion. We can do it at a committee of the whole meeting, but tonight we're here to vote on a job description. Now, if you'd like to pull this specific description and vote on it separately, or table it, or vote on it separately, but again, one of the reasons we are doing this at this point in time is to allow the administration to get boots on the ground, get out on the street, and start recruiting individuals. and not keep kicking this can down the road. But I'll do whatever the board wants to do. But I think tonight we should vote on the job description as presented. As far as, I won't even go down that path. We'll have that discussion later.
I'm inclined to feel the same way, and I understand that this is a different, I mean, maybe a different thing. Will we be able to add some, I don't know, an MOU to it or along that lines?
Well, again, I think that's a discussion we need to have with our HR professionals.
Okay. But that is a discussion I think that later on, if it needs to be had.
But this thought, and we've had this discussion a lot. I've heard it in public with board members sitting in the audience. I am concerned that when we have these discussions that we are questioning the people our staff are hiring. We're not hiring these folks. We trust our staff to go hire these folks. And I feel that our staff hires the best, most qualified applicant for any opening position. And I'm not gonna question that, ever.
I believe that, but I do know, and if you go back on the record, when I was appointed to the board, I said one of the reasons why I wanted to be on this board was I wanted kids of color and people of color to see somebody in a position of decision-making because representation matters. And so I think it's vitally important to have people who look like themselves, the children and our students, if we're going to move forward. We've changed a lot, and I think it's vitally important to have representation, so.
I'd just like to say that I see it as two separate issues. The job description, right now, like when I'm looking at the intervention specialist, the goal for that in particular is finding the best person who can deliver reading support to children, be it a person of color, be it whatever. We want the best person that we can find, and right now we're having significant trouble recruiting teachers to begin with. So we have to, the first priority should be, in my estimation, is always you want to hire the best person. And I see it as, as far as this job description, I don't think it would be appropriate to put any of the hiring practices in. This is basically saying what the person's going to do. I think what's pointed out is we would have to go with the HR. It doesn't go in this kind of a job description, typically.
I would agree. You just got to look at what the HR says and what you're allowed to put in a job description. It's changed over the years, and I think it's just that. It's not that it isn't not for people, but I want the best qualified people. But to put in a job description, you got to really be careful,
Isn't it, I mean, the job description has several sections: summary of purpose, essential requirements, essential functions. Isn't cultural competency a part of an essential requirement? Wouldn't we want that of all of our staff, to be culturally competent? I don't think we can go down the path of dictating what a person looks like, but for all of our staff to be learning and growing about students from other cultures, students from different economic statuses than what they're most familiar with. I think that to me, could be an essential requirement. It could be, I think there could be lines that maybe you'd want to add to essential functions as well. I don't.
Well, I think that's part of staff development. I have not been in an education setting at a high school level, but I've taught students, and cultural competence is something that you teach in your education process, and certainly I would assume that there's some component in your professional development that is presenting that information and so forth. You don't have to walk in somebody's shoes, but you have to have that ability to empathize, to understand. And too many times we listen to respond instead of listening to understand. And I think that that's part of educating people, both who are in the system as well as in the education process, and I feel sure that educators, as my student nurses, get exposure to cultural competence. Is that not correct?
Thank you, Mrs. Gogler, and you just backed me up great, because that's a perfect segue and setup for Mr. Woodman. We've been sitting here making hand gestures with each other. So, Kurt, take it away.
Yes, we've had numerous, over my career, I've had numerous, cultural trainings. First one that I've had in Chambersburg was when I was a teacher over 20 years ago that, we had when we started to get more Hispanic students to learn about culture. It was one of the best trainings I still had to this date. In each job description at the end, just so we know, there is the equal employment opportunity statement that's what has to be in each job description. The CASD is an equal opportunity education institution and will not discriminate on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, and it goes on for a paragraph. But that is in each one of the job descriptions that we're bringing forward towards the bottom. I do understand the cultural references, though, for essential functions, and that is something that we do through, whether it's our ESL department or through our PD, and it's something we need to do more of. And the last thing, the exciting thing that we're moving forward with, part of our blueprint, is to create our own educators. There's actually later in the agenda tonight, it's a new item, a grant that we got just to do that with special ed for disabilities, to help support our own teaching. We would love going back to the Ignite, having our own teaching college where we can start to recruit our own, and by doing that, they'll start looking more like our population.
And Mr. Woodman just kept the audience on the edge of their seats until we get to item 13.01. Thank you.
Is it not true in the Act 55, if I may be wrong on the Act, but teachers are, trained in this, that they're coming out more and more to be sensitive toward the culture and everything? I think it's Act 55. Maybe I'm wrong. I know I've read it someplace.
Most bachelor's programs for teachers have cultural awareness and many courses, and then there's in-servicing that goes on by the school districts themselves to highlight this area, because it is really important that culturally, teachers have an understanding of what kids are going through, so they can relate to them and they can structure their lessons knowing that background.
Yeah, and let me be clear. I was questioning the verbiage in the description, not the process of hiring people. I have utmost trust in the integrity they're hiring the right people, but they're hiring it to the description. I was saying the description might be better. I'm okay with it as it is, if that's what the board wants. I am a team player.
I guess it's unclear to me what the downside is in including what Mike is referring to. I understand that we're doing training on it, but we do training on a lot of things listed on the job description. So I think Mike's proposal only strengthens the job description. And it's unclear to me why we wouldn't want to add that.
Okay, we have a motion to withdraw the elementary intervention specialist job description from 7.06, and then we'll vote on everything else. Do we have to pull the whole item off, or just pull one? All right, we'll do this in steps. All right, let's do a motion, if you will, to pull 7.06 out of the consent agenda. Okay. Any other questions on the consent agenda items? Okay. All those in favor of approving? Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't we have a motion? We got right to the discussion. My fault. Motion and second to approve consent agenda items 7.01 through 7.13.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Gogler, second by Mr. McKee. All those in favor of approving items 7.01 through 7.12, 7.13 is approving the first 12. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved. Second consent agenda, these items 8.01 through 8.11, these were previously discussed at the Committee of the Whole. Go ahead and follow the same protocol. Chris or your staff, do you have any comments or additional information to share on any of these 11 items?
I don't think so, other than I believe 8.21, the ESL service assistant is a bilingual employee. Can I confirm that, Kurt? I believe that's a yes? Yes. Yeah.
And this is just the position, not the employee?
It's the position, but we're looking to hire them on the consent, are they on the agenda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions, comments on any of the consent agenda items in the 8 series? Okay. All those in favor signify. I missed that again. Motion and second, 8.01 through 8.11.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Diller, second by Mr. Haydock. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved. My apologies, Miss Harbaugh, I need to pause a little bit, but you were an aye vote there. Thank you. Item 11.01, first reading of policy 304, employment of district staff.
This was just a miss from a vote last time, so we're just catching up on this one. So this is a repeat vote.
Motion and second for the first reading of policy 304, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Haydock, second by Mr. Walker. All those questions or discussions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved. 12.01, safety and security update. Chief Carter, please. Just Chief Carter's coming up here just for the public and any board members. We're not going to go into a whole lot of details here on security. We do that in executive session because it is security related.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time. Just want to give you a brief safety and security update. Just to let everybody know our ESSERS projects, we have all but one of our purchase orders that are going to be closed out here in the very near future. So those things were counseling trauma response kits, surveillance cameras, our PA systems, portable radios, classroom go kits. So there was a whole plethora of things that we actually purchased through ESSERS, and that project has pretty much come to a close. PCCD grant funding that we've had previously, we had $150,000 where we did LED lighting on all of our buildings in our parking lots. And we did some playground fencing in our elementary schools with that grant. We also had a meritorious grant, which was $45,000 that we purchased additional surveillance cameras and did some more installations. So all of our schools, just to put it in perspective, our high school has about 165 new cameras. Each of the middle schools have about 40 cameras each, and we're continuing to add to that as we move forward. Same way with radios. One thing I did want to touch on, which was the new grant that's actually a PCCD grant that's out there. It's approximately $277,000. Mr. Bigger actually asked me to discuss a couple things that we were looking at, hopefully moving forward with. One would be a canine in our schools. So the actual canine itself and an officer to actually run that canine. That canine would actually be certified in narcotics detection and also firearms detection. And we're in the process right now of gathering information from other schools and other districts. We're specifically working with the Northeastern School District, who has that program already in place. I just found out the other night and talked with the Cumberland Valley School District canine officer. I saw him at the football game. We had a very short discussion about what their program was and how we could bring that to Chambersburg. We think that that's something that it's not just a narcotics dog. This is more of a total package dog. It's more of a, I don't want to say show and tell because that's not the right words, but it's going to go to all the schools. We're going to allow all the kids to have access to it. It's going to be more of a community service-based project for us, but it is going to have some service work that we feel is very, very critical to the district. But there's a lot of things that go into that. Training, certification. The dog is going to be a donated dog to the district that'll come out of California, go to Texas, which will marry up our officer and the dog for 3 weeks of training down there for the certifications. Then they will come back here, and then we'll work through the process of what it looks like in our district. But it's been very successful in all the districts that I've talked to, and very, very positive effects for policing and for community service within our schools with that officer working that program. Something else that we'd be looking at, and I'll ask for any questions here in a minute, with that grant would be, if you didn't hear about it, we had a weapons detection system at our last football game, which was, it's not an actual metal detector, it's actually a detection system. So it's not actually scanning and x-raying, but we had it at all of our gates at the home football game. It was actually very good, did what it was supposed to do. The company actually came out, they brought 3 pieces of equipment. We ran people through the game. The holdup for us was they were moving so fast through the weapons detection system that our ticket booths got a little bit backed up, so we couldn't get the tickets to them fast enough. So that's a good thing, and we are looking at that, maybe exploring that option for some of our events, and maybe even our secondary schools as we move forward. Just to put it in perspective, it's a one-pole system. You walk within 36 inches of that pole, and it actually is looking for ferrous metals, whether it be weapons such as a firearm or a knife, but it also can detect that in cell phones and earbuds and iPads and things like that. But it was we think a successful look at a piece of equipment that we may look at trying to make our schools a little safer with. And the last thing we're looking at with that grant is some safety bollards for some of the entrances to our schools. Depending on which direction you guys decide to go, that will determine whether or not we move in that direction. So that grant is not yet approved, but that is something right now that we're really putting a lot of work into, again, to try and make the district, try and move the district forward, make it a little bit safer, and have some more programming, community service things for us. Does anybody have any questions? I know that's very quick. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Chief, thank you. Great job. Question I have is about cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So there is really no central monitoring of all those cameras, right? I mean, they're just scattered wherever they are, and someone might look at a camera, at a monitor, and say that's for the door there, and that's all they're seeing.
Yes and no. So they're not scattered. So we actually strategically put those. So we replaced a lot of the old ones that weren't operating properly.
Right.
And then we found some dead spots or some pretty serious spots or critical spots, which is where we directed these new cameras to. They are not viewed 24/7, but they are used routinely every day by administrators, by secretaries, especially at our secondary schools, or if we have events or something that goes on. So they're monitored, but not 24/7.
And I'm assuming that there's some preventative aspects to it, because if people think there's cameras around, they're going to be reluctant to do something wrong.
It's certainly a deterrent, and I will tell you this, that our cameras in the district, I don't want to say we're not 100% solvability rate in crimes that occur, but I would say because of those cameras, we're in the high 90s
because
for
of the
solvability
resolution,
because of the cameras and actually being able to view the footage when an event happens.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions on that? So I'm just going to touch on 3 more things very quickly. Just safe to says. To this date, the district has had 89 safe to says so far this year, which is a very high number. I will say 44 of those came between September 10th and September 13th when we had the online threat. So there were 44 that came in within those 3 days, which we worked with the state police and Chambersburg Borough Police. Cyberbullying and bullying was 9. So we had 89 total. 44 of those were really from a 3-day period. So the numbers are a little bit skewed with what we have. Life safety, we've had 5 of those, which are students that are in crisis that we actually send some checks on and welfare checks on. Children and youth referrals, we've had 82 to this point in the year. Cams North has had 11, South 6, Cache is 19, and Ben Chambers 12. There's some of our higher numbers in the schools that we have. And then just threat assessments. which are suicide risk assessments, or if we have a student that's in crisis that's going down the wrong path or possibly a pathway to violence, we actually do threat assessments or screenings. Just to give you a snapshot, Caches has had 13 suicide risk assessments and 2 threat assessment screenings. The middle schools have had 10 total. North had 8, South had 2 suicide risk assessments. Threat assessment screeners, North 3, South 2, and comprehensive threat assessments. That's where a student is definitely having some issues that we need to address. North had 1 and South had 2. In the elementary schools, we've had 2 suicide risk assessments, believe it or not, and threat assessment screeners where we're actually looking at some of the risks of these kids. We've had 12 total. So those numbers are a little high, but I will tell you that, you know, our psychologists, our counselors, our principals work hand in hand with parents and students alike, and they do a tremendous job in making sure that we're trying to get out in front of kids that are in crisis or having some issues. Does anybody have any questions on those numbers? I know I covered them very quickly, but I just wanted to touch on that. It's just an update to safety and security.
Thank you.
Nothing? Okay, thank you very much.
Just want to highlight, thanks for being innovative with the October 11th and the football game. That was a unique try at those detectors, and certainly looking into the K-9, the community service dog. Very unique ways to approach school safety, so I appreciate that.
It is, and they are definitely positive. They
Yep.
have definitely had positive
Big
effects so far.
deterrents.
in the
Both of them
fall.
are really good deterrents.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief.
Thank you.
Item 13.01, new business, developing future special educators grant. Mr. Whitman.
So I have to give credit to Sheree Sullivan for applying for this grant and receiving this grant through Patan. We are hopefully going to have some of our high school or CMS students that will be interested in this, that they will get hands-on experiences, also earn some elective credits, attend all the PD that our special ed department does, and work hands-on with some of our special needs students, hopefully encouraging our high school age students to think about this as a career. So we're pretty excited about the opportunity and the grant that we received.
How much was it?
Go ahead. How much? $20,000?
$20,000.
Just for a point of clarity on procedure, we got this today, this item, and technically you have to have 24 hours of an item before voting. There are 3 reasons you can, and we don't have a solicitor to tell you this, so I had to do some phone a friends today. If it's de minimis of nature, you can have it approved less than 24 hours. If it's not a contract where you're expending a contract or you're spending any money. So we're not spending money, it's grant money. It's not necessarily a contract. It doesn't really need board approval, but we would like board approval tonight, and we think it's within the 24-hour period. We're still okay doing it. It doesn't look to be a significant issue. It's not taxpayer dollars necessarily. It's a grant, and it's not necessarily a contract. So we're walking a fine line there on the 24-hour rule, which is a new law that says all items must be publicly viewed 24 hours before voting. So I feel comfortable taking a vote on this one just to meet the timeline that was due October, I think, next week. So we won't have a voting meeting prior to that.
So you're changing this from an information item to an action item because it's on as information?
It is on his information item. I just feel more comfortable just doing an action item on it because it is a $20,000 grant we're receiving. So,
Yeah, I'll give the simple construction worker explanation to this. Someone's going to give you something for nothing. Take it. So do we have a motion and second to accept this grant money?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Gogler, second by Mr. McKee. Discussions or comments?
Just the whole concept of this future educator program just excites me so much because I've been saying ever since I've been on the board that we need to be getting our students ready to go as far as education is concerned. So I'm just thrilled that we have a future educator program and now getting some free money to help with it.
Yes.
I think it's great too because obviously we've lost a lot. With Shippensburg and whatnot, and students not going, me being up in that space, listening to some of the students, education has declined. And so, to push in that direction to make sure that we're grooming the next next group of educators is great, so.
I don't mean to contradict, but perhaps it's not something for nothing. They're going to give us money, and we're going to turn around and do really good work with that money, right? So there is, to some extent, an exchange. I don't mean to push back too hard on you.
Except free money, yes.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing free, huh?
Versus adding it to the tax bills.
Yeah, fair point.
Okay, any other questions, discussions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so moved. Item 1401, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
That was quick.